In 2025, the world of AI is going through this massive reset. The promises are getting bigger and wilder than ever, but so are the questions. People are starting to call it the Great AI Recalibration, and we're going to break down what that really means.
I mean, it's wild to think about. An AI can spin up an entire interactive world just from a few words you type. It can run huge parts of a business pretty much by itself. The power is, well, it's undeniable. But the more these things can do on their own, the more you gotta ask that one big question. Can we actually trust them? And that tension right there is what this is all about.
So, to really get what's at stake, you first have to appreciate just how big this breakthrough is. We are smack in the middle of an agentic AI boom. This is an explosion of AI that doesn't just answer questions, it can act on its own. It's kind of like a digital Cambrian explosion. All these new forms of AI are just popping up at a crazy pace.
Okay, so what exactly is an AI agent? Because we're not just talking about a fancy chatbot here. Gartner puts it pretty well. They're autonomous software that can see what's going on, make a decision, and then actually do something to reach a goal. The big mindset shift is to stop thinking of them as tools we use and start seeing them more like digital employees we can delegate tasks to. And all this incredible potential puts these agents at a very interesting spot on that famous Gartner hype cycle. Right now, in 2025, they are at the absolute peak of inflated expectations. This is the moment of maximum buzz, right? The money is just flooding in, the promises seem totally limitless. But here's the thing, that peak is also the most dangerous point. It's where a hard dose of reality might be just around the corner.
And you can see why there's so much hype. The things these models can do are just mind-blowing. Let's just look at the big players. You've got OpenAI's GPT-5, which now has a special part of its brain just for reasoning through tough problems. Then there's Anthropic's Claude 4.5. This thing can work on a complicated job for over 30 hours straight, all by itself. And xAI's Grok 4, it can just use other software and search the web on its own to make plans. The power is just staggering. But you know the saying, right? With great power comes great risk. And that brings us to a much-needed reality check. Because behind all these incredible tricks, some pretty big cracks are starting to appear. There's a ghost in the machine that we really can't afford to ignore.
And this quote from Parmi Olson at Bloomberg, man, it just hits the nail on the head. For all their power, these models are basically just incredibly sophisticated pattern matchers. They are brilliant at remixing all the stuff they've been trained on, but are they actually thinking? Are they reasoning from scratch? Well, that's a whole other story.
And there's a perfect story that shows what we mean. They're calling it the Erdos blender. So OpenAI researchers claimed that GPT-5 had solved 10 super famous unsolved math problems. And for a minute, everyone was freaking out. A huge breakthrough, right? Well, not so fast. Turns out, a mathematician pointed out the solutions were already online. The model hadn't solved anything. It had just found the answer key on the internet and copied it. The post got deleted fast, but it was a huge wake-up call about what these things can and can't do.
Now, that reasoning gap gets way more dangerous when you don't have just one AI, but thousands of them all interacting. Researchers are pointing out all these hidden risks when you have these big multi-agent systems. You get weird stuff like information asymmetries. That's basically one agent having a secret. Or destabilizing dynamics. Think of it like a domino effect, where one tiny mistake from one agent can crash the whole network. The really wild part is something called emergent agency, where the whole group starts acting in ways that nobody programmed them to. And let me give you just one example of a security risk, because this is genuinely creepy. It's called memory poisoning. Basically, a hacker can sneak in and corrupt an agent's memory. So the agent, thinking its memories are real, just keeps doing harmful things over and over again. It has no idea it's been hacked. Its own experience has been turned into a weapon against it. And what makes all this so urgent is the sheer scale we're talking about. This isn't just a few systems in a lab. By the end of 2025, we're expecting, get this, 40 billion of these agentic identities to be active around the world. 40 billion. And yet, only about 10% of companies actually have a clear security plan for them. That is a massive gap. So the big question is, how do you close a gap that big? Well, that's where the idea of building guardrails comes in. Faced with this explosion of power and risk, pretty much everyone, from governments to researchers, is racing to come up with new rules and new safety tech for this new age.
Probably the biggest response we've seen so far is the European Union's AI Act. And the core idea is actually pretty simple. It's a risk pyramid. At the bottom, you have low-risk AI that doesn't need many rules. As you go up the pyramid, the risk of harm gets bigger, so the rules get tighter. And right at the top, you have stuff that's considered totally unacceptable, like government social scoring systems, and that stuff is just banned completely. The bigger the risk, the tighter the rules. Makes sense, right?
And look, this isn't some proposal for 10 years from now. This is happening as we speak. The bans on the most dangerous AI practices, they've been in effect since February 2025. The guidelines for the big AI models were ready by May. The guardrails are literally being built right now. But laws are only one piece of the puzzle. The technology of AI safety itself is having to evolve fast. You know, it used to be about single model safety, just making sure one AI was aligned with our values. But now the challenge is what they call multi-agent governance. How do you manage an entire ecosystem, a whole society of these agents? It's a completely different ballgame. And this new problem is sparking some really clever solutions. Engineers are building systems with zero-trust architecture, which basically means AIs can't trust each other by default. They have to earn it. They're also building in circuit breakers, like a big red emergency stop button for any agent that starts going off the rails. And this is my favorite part. They're building AI oversight systems. They're using trusted, good AIs to watch over the other AIs, basically fighting fire with fire.
So we've talked about the code and we've talked about the rules. But none of this happens in a vacuum. It all runs on real physical hardware. So for our last section, let's go down to the engine room, because at the end of the day, hardware is what powers everything.
If you want just one number to understand how huge this AI boom is, just look at NVIDIA. By late 2025, its value hit an astronomical $4.5 trillion. And to put that into perspective, they gained $2 trillion of that in just 1 year. That's just insane. That number tells you one thing. The world cannot get enough of the chips that make all this AI stuff work.
And that crazy demand is kicking off a total revolution in hardware. We're seeing this big shift to custom chips. Things like NPUs and TPUs, they're designed for one job and one job only, running AI efficiently. This has set off a massive chip war and a global data center arms race to build enough server farms to power it all. And at the same time, all that power is also shrinking down and being put right in our phones, so more AI can run locally on your device. Which brings us to one last really big question. As these AI systems get more and more powerful, more and more autonomous, who or what is really in control? Is it the code itself, the agents making their own decisions? Is it us, with our laws and regulations trying to steer them? Or is it the actual silicon, the hardware that makes it all physically possible? This whole great recalibration isn't just about technology. It's about deciding where we as people choose to place control. And that is definitely something worth thinking about.